And welcome to the 300th episode of Reliving My Youth. My name is Noel Fogelman. It's amazing we've reached this milestone that I've actually had 300 people agree to come on to this show. And I thank every guest I've had. I thank every listener who's listened, everyone who's left a review. It means a lot, and keep listening. And I hope to get 300 more of these. Started with Kenneth Johnson, the very first episode. He was the creator of V. And we've done 298 more that have been released up until this point, number 300, featuring actor Kevork Malikyan. He's probably best known in the States for portraying Kazim, the leader of the Brotherhood of the Cruciform in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He talks about meeting George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and what role that Spielberg remembered him for. And he had some amazing praise for Kevork as well. He also tells the story how he missed out on another character in the Indiana Jones franchise, one we all know and love, who actually reprises the role in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny that comes out next week. So Indiana Jones is still in the spotlight more than ever. Kevork starred in the British comedy Mind Your Language. Very funny show. I remember watching a little bit back when I was younger. You can still find it on streaming sites. It's really funny. He's had a 60-year career in the business, following going to school to become a priest. He talks about that as well. In all the 300 episodes I've had, I always say that these guys are lovely and had great conversations with them. But Kevork might be in the top 5 conversations I had. Such a really nice man, really engaging. It's felt like I've known him for years. I hope you enjoy my conversation, and here's to another 300 episodes. So, Kevork, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I've been a fan of yours for quite some time.
My pleasure, my dear friend. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah. So what are you up to these days?
Well, I spend most of my time now not working. Sometimes, well, really, perhaps most of the time out of choice, because I'm so tired, and I'm not that because I've achieved all that I want to achieve. None of us do in this profession.
Right.
We always think there's a better thing around the corner, you know. There's that one film. There's that one film that'll make you
right.
So, but I do still work, thank God. Although I was 80 last week, so I've reached. Yeah. So yeah, I still keep working. I've got something for Netflix, which I did in Turkey, which hasn't been shown yet. I did something called Valhalla Vikings, which hasn't been shown yet. And I have one or two things lined up for Zoom interviews, I'm sorry to say, but I hope I don't muck them up. For some projects, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm all right, yeah. I'm quite happy. I'm still working, and it's almost 60 years, so I can't complain.
Right. And you mentioned, like, doing something for Netflix. I mean, it's got to be so beneficial for the actors now that have all these streaming sites and all this, like, extra stuff for to get more work. Whereas when you started, it wasn't nearly as much of these opportunities.
Absolutely. I think, and if you asked, like yesterday, on Monday, when we met up at the BBC in the green room to say hello to each other before we started recording, there were 2-3 people, wonderful actors that I'd worked with and that I'd completely forgotten because it was such a long time ago. And the others who knew of my work because I've been around for so long. You're absolutely right in the sense that when I started in the UK, and I came to the UK almost without a word of English, and I came to the UK on the back of having trained for priesthood for 7 years in Istanbul in an Armenian semi-theological college. So everything was really unknown to me. And I really didn't know what was going on, to be honest. I mean, today I might have approached my career in a different way, if you know what I mean.
Right.
But 60 years ago and opportunities weren't as many. Although in the country, in England, there were a lot of television companies, which sadly most of them have disappeared now. They've gone into little production companies, and the BBC, like a huge organization like the BBC is completely broken down, and they have their programs made by production companies outside because it's so much cheaper.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. The advent of Paramount Plus and Apple and Netflix and Disney Plus, there is a lot more work around than there was. What this does, it's obviously a wonderful opportunity for actors too, because we get a chance to work a little more often than we would have done perhaps. But then also it drives down the economy of the employment and all that, because, and as you know, and this applies to all sorts of things in life. Sorry, things are bad. COVID was this and COVID was that.
Right.
We can't pay you this. We know you deserve this, but would you do it half the price?
Of course.
Because they know that.
Yeah.
They're all over the bloody place. So it has its pluses and then it has its minuses when it comes to. But anyway, work-wise, you're right. Yeah, there is a lot more work available. And what I think what is also great is that countries like Turkey, where I was born, for instance, and I've only spent a few years recently working in Turkey. They would have had no chance of getting foreign productions into the country 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
Or countries like Turkey, Hungary, etc., Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, they've all become almost all Europe and North Africa, Morocco, etc. They've all become hubs of film and television work, productions. So that from that angle as well, it's a nice thing that countries are getting, after so many years of the film industry, but for the first time they're getting a taste of how you handle a TV series and all that, or and how do you budget? How does it all happen? How do you all put it together, etc.
Is it easy for you to get like a working visa? Is it different like
yes, no,
companies?
No. We, as a British citizen, obviously with us coming out of EU,
right.
Unfortunately, really, I think most of the country will agree that coming out of Brexit was a huge disaster for England, although
right.
the Conservatives perhaps won't be honourable enough to admit it.
No.
But now, so we now have to get all sorts of paperwork filled in, insurances. You can't visit countries like we used to, just across the border, and you were in Hungary, you were in Poland or whatever. Now we've got an insurance for that. Yes, it's become difficult to work in Europe. What they do, unfortunately, now, unless a director wants you particularly, which I'm glad to say that it does happen on occasions, they will go through all the trouble and the expenses of getting all your visas and insurances sorted out. But then those companies that can't be bothered to go through the expenses of all that, they will go and hire an actor in the country of similar sort of status, as it were.
Right.
But working in Turkey doesn't have, of course, I was born in Turkey, so I'm also a Turkish citizen, a citizen of Turkey. Therefore, I don't need to apply for work permits and things, or visas and all that, etc. It's open for me. Yeah.
Okay. Have you reached a point in your career that you don't have to audition anymore? That your previous work stands?
I don't know. First of all, no. With all sincerity, regardless of what people say, unless you become. But I understand even these days, even those top people, listening to Robert De Niro and Al Pacino and people like that, all this nonsense of self-tape, etc. People do, unfortunately, in the old days, it would all be face-to-face.
Yeah.
Like I met Spielberg face-to-face and George Lucas face-to-face. I met Alan Parker face-to-face, etc. So for all sorts of wonderful directors, John R. Moore, I met face-to-face for Flight of the Phoenix. So and all my television work in the UK. I spent my time meeting people and having a wonderful time, and really getting almost 90% of all the interviews that I attended.
Yeah.
And this nonsense of self-tape now is, my agent assures me, of course, people know you, Kevork. Sure they do, but that doesn't buy you a ticket anymore.
Okay.
There are some out there, unfortunately, will want to know, perhaps for the right reasons, perhaps will want to know whether your face is still young enough, or how old you've got, or your face is full of lines, you're 80. So
Right.
therefore they want to see, they're surprised that you're alive for a start.
Yeah. Well, you don't look 80 at all, so that's good.
So they want to see what you look like now and what you sound like, etc. I think Noel, I think directors have become too afraid, too cautious. None of them really. There are very few of them now. I'm talking about the young generation, probably not your Spielbergs and Ridley Scotts and Teddy Georges, etc. Alan Parker's, God bless him. But especially young directors, I think we're all so unsure of our positions, and the market is so huge.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone is safe anymore. Do you know what I mean? And if you've done enough, someone like Dustin Hoffman or people of similar sort of status, you quietly retire, and if you get one film, which is an offer, you do it. Otherwise, you just don't work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm sort of getting to that stage now. I mean, for instance, when I came home last night, when I came home, I turned my television, my telephone on, and there was a request for a self-tape for some Netflix series which is being shot in England somewhere. And in the morning, I phoned my agent. I said, "No, darling, I can't do it. I'm so knackered. I can't. I just need to rest for a week or two." And especially when it was a self-tape, I said, "Oh, bugger it, if you'll pardon the language, But I said, if a self-tape, no." Had it been an offer, I may have just, but I just couldn't be bothered to go through the process of going to my agent's office, and they've set up a wonderful studio. I don't understand these self-tape things. I mean, this is a miracle. This is a miracle.
Right.
It really is. Yeah. Shall I tell you what happened 3 weeks ago, before I came here?
Oh, absolutely.
I had a Zoom call. I happened to be in Cyprus, where my family lives.
Okay.
And I had a request from my agent that the Royal Shakespeare Company and the director, Omar Helerian, I think, who is half Palestinian, half Italian. So he was in Italy. The Royal Shakespeare Company casting department were in Stratford-upon-Avon, where I've worked many times for the RSC. My agent was in London in her office, and I was in Cyprus. 4 continents.
Right.
Could I find anything? I pressed all sorts of buttons for 20 minutes. Nothing happened.
Right.
And then I sent an email to my agent. I said, "Please, Maureen, do apologize. I am so sorry." Anyway, "No, darling, don't be silly. It's okay." Because I'm not, anyway. So, and then half an hour later, or an hour later, I had an email from her. "Darling, the director desperately wants to talk to you. Can he phone you tomorrow for a meeting?" I said, "Of course, Maureen. Why didn't they do that in the beginning? Why do they want to see my face?"
Yeah. They know my face, right?
So we had a chat for at least an hour, if not more, and a nice young man. And it was for As You Like It, a new version, which when people get bored with certain writers, like Shakespeare,
Yeah.
and of course, really, no one gets bored with Shakespeare, but you know what I mean. When your writing has been around for 500 years, how many bleeding versions of Hamlet can you see?
Yeah.
Or Macbeth, or As You Like It, or whatever.
Right.
So what they're doing, this version of As You Like It, is with 65 plus actors.
Okay.
Who have worked at the RSC before, and I fit all the thing, and have played in As You Like It, in a production of As You Like It, etc. But anyway, we couldn't agree on certain things, and it didn't happen. They are rehearsing now. But yes, what led to this thing? Your question was, why did I tell you this story?
Oh,
If I derail myself, you must pull me back. Yeah.
okay. Not a problem. I don't even remember what the question was, but the Doom story was great.
Yeah. When you're having a nice time, you tend to forget. You forget. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Absolutely. But so, what is it about Shakespeare that people still keep coming back after centuries of his work? I mean, now they got to keep it, the fresh. You were saying, As You Like It, about making a 65 plus cast, but what is it about?
For me, well, I tell you, Noel, for me, my dear friend, and I'm no scholar for one moment, but I'd like to think that I'm not ignorant either, with all my. I think the great thing about Shakespeare, my dear friend, is he has the ability to touch the heart and soul of humans in any situation, in any country. His plays, as you know, from Denmark to Italy to Cyprus to Anatolia, etc., cover such a huge,
right?
And his characters cover so much. Shylock in Venice, for instance, in Italy. So there is, all of us are in Shakespeare, and Shakespeare is in all of us. So when you go, I think this is my take on it. You'll never get bored doing Shakespeare or watching Shakespeare. But on the other hand, as I said, how many times do you set, I don't know, A Midsummer Night's Dream in the Amazon forest,
right,
or whatever? People looking for new things, new ways to sell Shakespeare, because it's all right for my generation to like Shakespeare, but it's not the same perhaps for your generation, or indeed generations who are younger than you at school. They get bored with the language, don't they? Like I did in the beginning, but once I sort of learned to get on with it, and once I was able to get the rhythm of the language and the music in it, and it is beautiful.
Yeah. Well, that's how it was with me when I first discovered him in high school. It's hard at first, but then you realize that it's a work of art, and it's it's beautiful.
Absolutely, in every sense, every sense, my friend.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I think there are very few writers, and I've read a lot of, from Miller to Mehmet, etc. Very few writers who have handled their characters in the almost complete way that Shakespeare does. You cry with Shylock, you laugh with Shylock, you feel sorry with Shylock, and you conquer with Shylock. Do you see what I mean? How many writers? Or the desperation of Macbeth, etc. No, it's wonderful. Great writer, yeah.
I mean, I guess one thing we haven't seen with Shakespeare is sending him to outer space. So hopefully that'll happen,
Look, the way Elon Musk and Amazon man, what's his name?
Jeff Bezos,
and Branson, etc. The way they're going, my dear friend, I promise you, the only thing they'll take up probably with them is Shakespeare, because they don't have to pay any revenues, any what you call it.
Yeah. Shakespeare in the Park will be Shakespeare on Mars,
Exactly, absolutely. Now we'll have productions on Mars, and Moon, and the Moon and Neptune and whatever.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll keep that call down, right? You're not going to space for that one.
No. I think we'll give it a miss.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're going to be a priest. So So what was the detour to acting? How did that come about?
The detour to, first of all, for priesthood as well, Noel, is I was the youngest son of an Armenian family in Diyarbakir, which is an old ancient city in eastern Turkey near the Syrian border. And in the early 50s, I was born in 1943, so the Patriarch of Armenians approached the government of Turkey at the time and wanted to open, because I'm sure you'll know that during the good times of the Ottoman Empire, there were loads, there were 2,000 something plus like Armenian churches and monasteries and schools.
Right.
All gone after the bad times of the Ottoman Empire. So therefore we had almost 50 Armenian churches in Istanbul, for instance, because in the rest of the country they got destroyed, they got pulled down, they were turned into mosques, they were turned into whatever. But Istanbul remained, like for other communities, the Jewish community, the Greek community, etc. They remained somehow a little more together in Istanbul because Istanbul was a little closer to Europe, and they needed the minorities, to keep the economy going. I think that's why they didn't touch Istanbul. So anyway, he wanted to open this seminary, this theological college, this monastery, because he wanted to have educated normal priest. You can get married, priest, and you can have your parish, etc. But he wanted his priests to go beyond that. He wanted them to be bishops, archbishops, Catholicos, etc. And which is so. And then he sent round a priest to the Anatolian Peninsula, where there were still Armenians who were survivors of the genocide, like my parents were survivors of 1915, and pick the cleverest boy after one or two questions, and bring them to Istanbul, and we'll train them to be priests, you see. We'll train them for priesthood. And I was one of those lucky kids, and fortunately my father allowed me to, but did I know anything about priesthood? Did I see God or angels visiting me one day and saying, you're cut out to be a priest? Of course I didn't. I had no idea, but it was a great adventure. So at the age of 10, I came to Istanbul, and 2 years I completed my primary education in an Armenian primary school, and then I went to this Armenian Holy Cross seminary school for 7 years, because I repeated my class. I wasn't that bright in maths and all sorts of things like that, but I think I was good when it came to literature and cultural and artistic sort of activities.
Right.
Yeah, I think. So we had an Anglican priest who was brought into the monastery to teach us English. And this lovely old man, this beautiful man, was an Anglican priest, a scholar, a historian, who taught at Durham University, Canterbury University, etc. Anyway, he came to teach us English. And he happened to love theatre. And so he produced in English, and none of us spoke English.
Right.
So he produced a version of Richard III.
Okay.
And he gave me the part of Richard III. And so we all learned, obviously, in a puppet fashion, because none of us understood what we were saying. But I think, thinking about it now, it was probably, for what it was a brilliant production. So I started with, now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the sun of York, etc., etc. So, oh my God. So how do I decline, the telephone?
Yeah.
I've declined it. There you are. Thank God.
Okay.
Okay. And a friend of mine from America is calling me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He obviously doesn't know how funny. Anyway, and he suggested to the Patriarch, oh, for God's sake, yes. And this guy who's calling me, you will be amazed my childhood friend from, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, let him bring on. We won't wait. If you can hear me, this is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a childhood friend of mine who
Right.
I hadn't seen for perhaps 50 years.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, his name is Kevork, like mine. He lives in Boston, and his mother milked me. My mother milked him. We were neighbors, and I hadn't seen him until we attended the opening of the Armenian Cathedral in 2012 or 13 when I went to Istanbul, and the Patriarch invited me to the opening of this huge, wonderful, beautiful cathedral. That's where I saw him after 50 years.
Oh, wow.
And again, if he hadn't come to me, I promise I would never have
Wouldn't
known.
know.
I would have known. So we're like brothers.
Oh, that's
And
great.
he wants to know, the reason when he's phoning me is because he knows I'm here, and he wants to know if I can go with him to Istanbul or meet him in Istanbul. And then he wants to take me to, he's a huge businessman in Boston, huge
Okay.
businessman. Anyway, so sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no, that's
So
okay.
he went to the Patriarch, and he asked his permission if they would release me to go to come to London and study drama. And the Patriarch saw me, and because I didn't know, I mean, I knew nothing about acting. I still don't know much about acting, to be honest. But so, and they arranged a ground for me. The Patriarch arranged a ground for me. He said, look, go and give it a go. If you get accepted, you go ahead and become an actor. That's okay. There are enough students here. But he said, if you fail, just come back and continue with your theological studies and go into priesthood again, from that. And the father, Reverend David Harding, God bless him, he arranged my audition for me at Rose Bruford, etc. And the Patriarch arranged my grant from the Gulbenkian Foundation. So really, and I came, and my audition was successful. Obviously, I was accepted at Rose Bruford Drama School, which is one of the finest top drama schools in England, established, strangely enough, almost at the same time as my theological college was established in Istanbul, early 1950s. That's strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's something also really strange or something magical or whatever. I was born in 1943. I came to Istanbul in 1953, and I went to London in 1963. That's strange, isn't it? Like there's a 10-year thing
Every 10
in
years.
every.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I used to say to my children, I keep jumping. My brain is all over the place, but stop me if I kept saying to my children, I think when if every 10 years something interesting or something good doesn't happen in my profession as an actor, I'm going to give up. So every 10 years,
Yeah.
like, Indiana Jones came, or Midnight Express came, or the RSC came, or the Royal National Theatre, etc. Every 10 years, or a TV series.
Yeah.
Strange that, isn't it?
That,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
Anyway.
that's pretty funny. So I'd imagine, like, mind your language was perfect for you coming to England, not speaking any English. It was like written just for you then.
Absolutely, because I came in 63 and I attended a language school in the mornings, and in the afternoons I worked at an Armenian grocery store so that I could earn some money, and I didn't have to rely on my I got a grant from the Gulbenkian Foundation to study drama, because they only give you university sort of.
Yeah.
But I had a small grant from an Armenian organization which is based in America called Armenian General Benevolent Union, which is a huge old organization established in 1913 or something, just before the Armenian genocide. And they have offices in most countries, and they give grants, small grants, etc., to students. So I had their grant, but it wasn't enough. So I had to work at this grocery place. What was the question? Yes, my mind goes.
Oh, no, that's okay. About mind your language, how it was kind of like
Yeah. So what?
perfect for
So
you.
when absolutely when we came to do Mind Your Language, which is strange, isn't it? It's 50 something years, or is it 50 years now? 1977,
Yeah,
78,
almost. Yeah.
78. Yeah, and it is still being shown around the world, and we still get paid for it. Some repeat fees or
Yeah.
sales fees, etc. So when I went to see the producers at London and the director at London Weekend Television, casting director, um, they all found, you have to be you're actually the only one, Kevork, who is the perfect student because you came here without a word of English. You
Right.
went to a language school, so you've gone through the experience of all these mispronouncing words,
Yeah.
etc. This is what the game is, and you don't know the culture, and you ask silly questions, and it's funny, etc. Yes, absolutely. And Barry Evans, God bless his soul, who was
Yeah.
our teacher, and and he always said, Kevork, you were one of my nicest and easiest students in the class
Right.
because I knew what an English
Yeah.
teacher teaching English to the foreigners, what it was like when I went through the thing. But the thing, they asked me, they said, you're Armenian, Kevork? I said, yes. They said, you can play him as an Armenian, we will have no objection. I said, no, I don't think. No, I said, I'll speak truly. I said, no, I'll stick to Greeks because I think the Greeks are funnier than the Armenians. And also, there weren't, the English at the time, if you'd put at the time, now we have Kardashians, the whole world knows about where Armenia is and what
Right, exactly.
the whole world. Thank God for the Kardashians, I tell you. I cannot tell you. I think they're wonderful, absolutely brilliant. So, but at the time when I used to say I'm Armenian, they said, what Kevork? Armenian. Oh, Indian. I said, no, Armenian. Oh, where's that Kevork? It was like that,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So, whereas Greece or Greeks, because the English took loads of holidays on the Greek islands,
Right.
Cyprus, etc., etc. So they had more knowledge of Greeks being funny or not funny than they had of Armenians. So I chose to play him as a Greek. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The show, I remember watching it when I was younger. They simulcast it or here for a little bit, and it was funny. But I mean, I can see how people would think it's offensive. But I mean,
Yes.
comedy is, you're supposed to laugh at people.
Yes, but no, my to date, my dear friend, I can point out, and there's no need now. I can refer to a number of today, my dear friend, not forget 50 years ago,
Right.
that are more offensive than whatever that was said or done in Mind Your Language was offensive. It wasn't offensive. There were some people out there simply could not endure the success of a bunch of foreigners
Right.
in our foreign characters in our beautiful England, enjoying almost 19 million viewing every week.
Yeah.
Every week. I think my take is that, my dear friend. There was nothing so. There were people out there. Why isn't an Arab student there, or why isn't this? Well, you can't have everybody.
Yeah.
You know
Exactly.
what I mean? Yeah.
The
So,
classroom's only that big.
yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't buy, and I was really disappointed. We did two shows, two series rather,
Yeah.
and we signed to do a third series. And if that had been successful, we would have done a fourth series, etc. But the two series were very, very successful, and the third series was cancelled.
Okay.
But because we already signed the contract, that they paid us, but that's
Nice.
beside the point.
Yeah.
Beside the point. So no, I don't think it is politically incorrect and all that. Calling somebody a Spanish onion. I mean, what is politically incorrect about that? or the Italian, the Spanish guy calling the Spaniard, "You stupid spaghetti," or whatever, spaghetti face or whatever.
Right.
Silly, not funny, maybe. You know what I mean?
Right.
But what is offensive about that?
No, I agree. Yeah.
It's nonsense. They did go. Some of them, one or two of the students, actors, put some money together, and they did a third series. They very kindly approached me, and I mean, knowingly, I outpriced myself. I didn't want to do it.
Right.
Knowingly, because I'm one of those. I had personally, I'd had enough as an actor. There's so much you can do in a typecast sort of role like that, and you don't want as an actor to be playing what is the word? Not done, but you don't want to be playing these stereotype foreign character forever, So I sort of elevated myself.
Yeah.
I took myself out of there and moved into a little classier sort of world of television work,
Yeah.
like House of Cards, etc., on British television, and
yeah,
there were wonderful series like Crown Court, etc. I played judges, I played doctors, which I would never have played. I never played in the beginning of my career. This is Noel, and this is my friend, Silva's husband.
Hello.
And
Hi, Noel.
How are you?
I stay with them all the time. They are my London parents.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Noel, you are always in good hands. Don't worry.
Oh, good. I appreciate it. You as well. You as well.
All right, sir. All right, man. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, I think it was all nonsense. Anyway, it's gone now beyond us. I mean, if it was that bad, it wouldn't have gone on for 50 bloody years. You know what I mean? People are still watching it. People are still buying it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Noel, I'm surprised. Maybe you heard. You did a version of it in America, because we were told.
Yeah.
We were told that an American TV company came to watch it because it was so successful, and they decided, because they couldn't take us because we would have been expensive, whatever.
Yeah.
They couldn't say. So they decided to do a version of it in America.
Yeah. What a world! What a world! I think it was called.
Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Travolta was in it. Was one of the students.
Oh well, yeah. There was a show. It was Welcome Back, Kotter, which was like, I think, a year after your show came out, but it was.
Right.
A little different. It wasn't like it was.
Oh, so
kind of like derelict students.
So it wasn't like ours. It
No.
wasn't ours like he was in. It was something else.
It was something else.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. I thought, yeah.
Right, but the show What a World was kind of based on that. I think there was like
oh my God, yeah,
it was like a Ukrainian actor, Yakov Smirnov was
right.
Yeah, it didn't last too long.
No.
Yeah, yeah. If you
I mean, so it probably would have worked in America, if because there are what is great about America, which you don't get in England, is America is built by Jews and Armenians and Italians and Mexicans and Cubans and you name it. They're all. It's a wonderful. America is America. It's not England and Wales and Scotland and Ireland, if you know what I mean. Where you can see the division on this island, whereas yours is a continent of migrants and wonderful. And you would have thought that a series like that should have worked. But
it just didn't have like the brilliance of you guys and the writers.
I think, as all the writers probably, because I have to say, the English, the guy who wrote Vince Powell, God bless him, he was of Jewish origin, which I think is it's a richness really one can have being born with, if you know what I mean. And I'm not being, or because there are nations that you can go back and squeeze and you'll get a lot of juice out of them, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of this. And there are, new nations that's also like everything else. Yeah. So Vince was a wonderful, witty, and he had, before us, I think he had a series called Never Mind the Quality, Feel the Width, which was all about a tailoring shop. And there were
Okay.
two Jews in the East End of London running it. So it was so funny.
Right.
There was a series called Till Death Us Do Part, he wrote. And there was a Jewish father with a but it was so funny, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
So they have the humor, like in America. All your comedians are wonderful, and they're all the best ones are Jewish.
Yeah, absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, Mel Brooks is still going, and
Absolutely,
he's
absolutely.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when people like the Nero, etc., comes in and they try to play, it doesn't work.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So yeah, how important was Midnight Express to your career?
Extremely, and that again is a film. I think my career, is blessed really, and I'm very, very grateful. There are classics in there. Is sometimes when I sit down and with my son, bless him, Sevan, who is a painter, a wonderful painter, born in London and went to Bath College of Art, which is a terrific art school, etc. And so we have loads of beers and watch football and and we talk. And when I turn around and I become a bit melancholic and all that, and I say, Sevan, maybe there was a better world out there for me, and maybe, and I will bring it back to, because when I left drama school here, I was taken on by the biggest, probably at the time, by an agency called Fraser and Dunlop. And they were the top agents in the UK, and they had the cream of the English actors. I think Sean Connery was with them, Vanessa Redgrave was with them, Ian McKellen was with them, Jonathan Pryce was with them, etc. And they took me on. They wanted to represent me, and I was so lucky. And I met up with Jimmy Fraser and Peter Dunlop in their office in Regent Street, huge table in a thing, and they said to me, we're going to propose two things to you, Kevork. You don't have to do it, but go and think about it and come and tell us. Either way, we would still like to represent you. No problem. We will work with you, etc. And those two things were, we would like you to change your name.
Okay.
Which is fair enough. But I didn't know what it meant, you see. I didn't know, for instance, Tony Curtis had a Jewish name, but it was so difficult to pronounce, or Kirk Douglas, or, also, I didn't know that.
Right.
I mean, there's me straight from a 7-year in a semi-monastery, going to church and every morning and every evening, and saying that there are angels out there who will come and save us and all that. I had no idea what. And also, we will send you to America, which was fascinating. You will struggle a bit, but we'll look after you. Don't worry, you'll struggle a bit for a year or two, but we believe in a year or two, or maximum 3, your career will mushroom in America. And clearly now I'm talking to you in England, so to both I said no.
Right.
So, what was the beginning thing? Midnight Express, wasn't it? Yeah. So my career has, fortunately, had I gone, it is absolutely no regrets. I am more than happy with my career, because I look at around and there are millions of us who sadly will not achieve a tiny quarter of what I've achieved, and wouldn't have worked, etc., etc. So I've no complaints from that angle for one moment, my dear friend. So when I said to him, when I say to him, Sevan, yeah, man, I mean, if I'd gone to America, I probably would have been in all those films, man, Taxi Driver or whatever, or all those Scorsese films and Elia Kazan films and things.
Yeah.
I would have been like Brando said, I could have been a contender.
Could have been something. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But I never did. But my son turns around to me and says, Dad, you're talking nonsense. You've been in films and TV things that people will remember, will live, and Midnight Express was one of them. Yeah. So when I went to see Alan Parker, I was only out of school 10, 15 years or something, and I begged him. I went to see him in his house. God bless him. And I'm so sorry that he passed away. I think he was far too young, really. And he didn't make enough He made some wonderful films.
Right.
But he should have lived longer to make. And I said to him, Mr. Parker, this is a wonderful story, and there are some wonderful Turkish characters in this. I may not be right for them age-wise, but I'm here in England. This is my chance to play a good part. As an actor, I'm yearning to. He said, Kevork, I know you probably can cope with, but he said, please listen to me. I want you to play the prosecutor, because the rest of the characters, I want to portray them physically, etc., as ugly as possible, because that's what they are in this prison. It's an ugly world. One is blind, the other one is drunk, and the other one. You come and present this horrific side of the Turkish sort of justice, as it were. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
You don't give someone, a life sentence forever just for a bit of drug thing. So, so I'm so glad. I nearly said no. I nearly said not no to him, but I would have gone to my agent and talked and said, it's only one scene, James, and it's like, but that one scene in that film, everybody remembers that scene.
Yeah.
And no, it was a great experience, and I'm so very. Of course, I got in trouble with not trouble, but when I first went to Turkey after 30, 40 years, my agent there said to me, Kevork, you're coming here before you start doing any work, because you'll be working almost non-stop and everybody will want to work with you. And then they said, I think we need to clear your name out of this Midnight Express thing. I said to him, Aisha, clear my name from Midnight? Well, what do you mean? He said, well, like Alan Parker and the guy who wrote it. What was his name? The writer. Anyway, don't worry. And they've all apologized to the Turkish government for being in the film. Are you going to say sorry? This is when she's interviewing me for the Hürriyet newspaper, which is a very big selling newspaper. I said, what do you want me to apologize for? What do I have to apologize for? I said, I'm an actor. You're a journalist. You make your living as a journalist. I'm an actor. I make my living as an actor. And I got the script. I read it. I thought it was exciting, and I thought I would do it. So, okay, yeah. Then, if you ask me, and again, this was before he passed away, we did a version of it after a few months. The film was shown. Alan Parker said they want to show it on American television, but they want the language, the Turkish language, to be tuned down a bit, etc. Kevork, will you please come and help me in the studio so we can introduce some milder words, etc. And because of the protests by the Turkish government and Turks in the middle of the streets in London and in front of the cinema, this is all Armenian and Greek lies. This is propaganda.
Oh.
This is as if their prisons were 5-star hotels. Like their prison is a prison in any corner of the world. These things happen in all the prisons in the world, not just in Turkey. But they commit every bloody thing that you can think of, unfortunately, and then they pretend they like to see themselves as angels and peacemakers, like Erdogan.
Yeah.
So, and their protests. Some governments didn't show the film for 5 years, 10 years. They didn't show the film. So they made the film great. It was a film that cost 6 or 7 million to make, and in the first year or something, they grossed 80 million pounds.
Not bad, yeah. It was Oliver Stone who wrote.
Oliver Stone who wrote.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess you made an impression on Spielberg, right? Because he tried casting you originally in Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? You tried getting in that.
Yes, originally, but that is a story which I was told. No, God, it's wonderful. John Rhys Davies, who plays.
Solid.
Who played. I've worked with him quite a lot, and I've worked with him. I worked with him on the stage as well for the Welsh National Theatre many years ago. And he said to me, Kevork, You remember you went for an interview one day, and you find it hard, and I'm sure, he's such a lovely man, honorable man, so I have no reason not to believe him. But I said, yes, I do. Yes, I went, and I was so late. Oh, it was a miserable day. I can't tell you now. Miserable. It took me 2 hours, and I thought it would take me 20 minutes to get to the thing. 2 fucking hours. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
2 hours. Yeah, 2 hours, But he was so ill. He had the flu. He opened the door, and the man at least opened the door and said hello to me. And he was in his pajamas and his dressing gown, coughing and spitting and everything.
Oh,
he said, "Thank you for coming, Kevork. Thank you." But you can see the way. So we never had I didn't even walk into the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
But years later, we didn't remember, or he didn't mention a word about it.
Okay.
Which is amazing,
Yeah.
So maybe I wasn't his choice, and John Rhys Davies, and I think John Rhys Davies has done a tremendous job. I mean, mine would have been something totally different, obviously, but I think John Rhys is absolutely right.
Yeah, and he's playing them again in the next movie that comes out.
Yes, in this. Yes, I haven't seen it yet.
Yes.
I don't know what I haven't. It hasn't had terrific reviews here.
Yeah, not yet.
Oh, it hasn't come out in America yet.
Not yet.
Yeah. Oh, because I heard
the end of the month. Yeah.
But I think it's playing in London, isn't it?
I'm
or
not
maybe
sure.
not.
They may have had
But why?
early
Because
previews.
some critics came out and they said it is not.
Yeah, I think they released it for reviewers,
Press release or something, or for the press or something.
Release,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but when I went to see him for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, two things. So many. Listen, these two are my angels, really. Spielberg and Lucas. They are just they are superhuman. They are superhuman in heart and in brain, in every sense, for me, and I'm sure they are for a lot of people.
Of course.
So I sat down in this, again, huge, like with Peter Dunlop and Jimmy Fraser, my agents, a huge table in the middle of Park Lane. Lucas, Spielberg, and the casting director, Maggie Cartier, bless her soul. And he looked at me, and he looked at me, and he looked at me, and I started sort of, not trembling, but getting a little embarrassed. And he said, Kevork, I suppose, he said, you've been told this before, but your face has a mixture of Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro, and Al Pacino. And I didn't know. I'm going, oh, thank you, sir.
Right.
I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, anyway. And he said, look, I see that you've done quite a bit of work in the UK. Is there something you may have done that we may have seen in America? And of course, Midnight Express came to my mind. Yeah. So I said, well, perhaps Midnight Express. And he went quiet for a minute or two. And then he went, of course, he said, you played that Turkish bastard prosecutor who put out American Boy for life sentence or something. The thing. So he'd seen it. He suddenly remembered.
Right.
It clicked, So yes, he was. So therefore, it's a classic. It's a classic, Midnight Express. It's a classic. It's like Indiana Jones, I suppose. Classic. I think Indiana Jones, if you ask me, and I've seen all three. And I have to admit, I didn't go and see the one with the English actor, the fourth one.
Oh, the Crystal Skull.
I didn't. I thought personally. I mean, a lot of people say they can't make up their minds whether Raiders of the Lost Ark is the best, or Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah.
But that would have been the last. That's why he named it. He told us it's the last one he's making. That's why he called it Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Yeah.
And then they rode off in the sunset, the last shot.
And absolutely, yeah.
But money talks.
But they would like.
Money talks. So they're gonna make it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But I mean, sometimes I say that neither of them. You think Spielberg and Lucas need money, for God's sake? They could buy Elon Musk and Elon.
Exactly.
Maybe, you know what I mean?
Right.
Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever think in all these years that you would get your own action figure?
No, this
Yeah.
was such a wonderful, wonderful. Some people on Twitter or Facebook or something, one
Yeah.
or two people, bless them. Kevork, it's having your own, what you call these things, figure or,
Yeah.
you
Action
know,
figure.
yeah,
Yeah.
action figures in thing is as good as, if not better, winning on the Oscar.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was shocked. I didn't know. There's a guy who follows me on Twitter, and he has been such a nice man. And he's asked me for a year or two or whatever, to have a coffee with him.
Yeah.
And of course, you don't. But I thought, and then apparently he was an ex-actor and a very nice Englishman. So I met up with him in Baker Street for a quick coffee. And he said, I have a present for you.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was shocked. I
Oh,
said,
wow.
no. He said,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I
Yeah.
think there's a what do we call these things? This con something.
Oh, the
You
comic
know,
conventions.
yeah,
Yeah.
Comic Con. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I did one of those years ago, my friend, years ago, and I said to my agent, I don't think I want to do them again, so I don't know. But there's a Comic Con, I think, in September. Yeah, I don't know if I'll go, but
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the character Kazim has left such a impression on everybody.
Yes, I have to say,
Active role.
but I have to say, no, when I think about it, I say to myself, no, but yes, my character was important in the storyline, but not enough to justify my my figure in the thing.
Yeah.
But then there you go. That's silly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you do any of your like own stunts in like the boat chase?
No, not my. We weren't allowed.
Okay.
We were they wouldn't insure us. We were insurance risks. No, all my what was his name? He was wonderful stunt guy. But he did all the Indiana Jones and he did all sorts of things. Yeah. He did all my stunt work. No, but Harrison Ford was he did everything.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, bless him. I suppose I don't know how they covered him for insurance. Honestly, I have no idea. But I mean, he's the lead. He plays the lead. So how do you do if something happens? What do you do without him?
Right.
But so they wouldn't allow us to do any of our stunt. But he did all his stunt
Wow.
work himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a beautiful man. He's a beautiful man.
Yeah.
Such a nice man. Such an open, direct,
Right.
generous gentleman. No pretense.
Yeah.
That you can look at him and you can't think of him being an actor, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Whereas, faces like mine, perhaps you can look at and say, oh, he can only be an actor, yes.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I do. Yeah. And I don't think anyone throws a punch better than him on camera. It's amazing in any movie.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, are you like surprised that they're still making them and that it's still that important to people after the first one came out over 40 years already?
The what?
Like, the first one came out like over 40
Yes,
years.
exactly.
That we're still
The
talking about these
appetite.
movies. It's
The
amazing.
appetite. But you see, you would have thought a brilliant brain like Spielberg's, a brilliant brain. He can take any subject, can't he? Why does it repeat? There's a market, obviously. There's a market there. And the merchandising market must be huge. They
Especially
must be
now.
making tons of money here.
Yeah.
I get nothing for this, by the way, between you and me.
Of course.
Because apparently at the time
You signed it away.
we were making it, we signed it away, but you didn't know, did you? I mean you sign away for a few pounds more, you sign away, don't you? Yeah. But anyway, yes, obviously huge money involved. I mean that fourth one wasn't a box office success, but at the end it made 200 million or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I know.
Who watches that?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's like now when the next one comes out, it's gonna be the same thing. It's probably won't be as successful as the other ones, but it's gonna make a ton of money and you know, more merchandise, more figures, and who knows, you might get another Kazim figure out of it, even though you're not in
Yeah.
the movie. Yeah, yeah.
So how do how did you get into did you train as a journalist? Did you train in the trade, or you
No,
just
the beauty about these is anyone that with an internet connection and a microphone can do this now. So
yes,
yeah,
I see.
you know, but I like my background, I actually worked for Al Jazeera for a few years, Al Jazeera America.
Really? Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, for the
I
three
love
year.
watching. I have to say, Al Jazeera was I watch four news channels here, and I fought Aram and Silva in the process. I watch Al Jazeera. I watch BBC World,
Okay,
France 24, and CNN.
okay,
And I find amongst all these four, for some strange reason, Al Jazeera closest, not necessarily,
yeah,
closest to telling the truth, as it were, rather
right,
than, because
yeah,
these are all government-owned government channels, they do
right,
play, you have to play that tune, don't you?
of
You have to play
course,
that tune. How
yeah.
many years did you do for Al Jazeera?
Well, the American channel was only around for 3 years, so I was there for the whole
All right,
time.
so of
Because
course, he would have, and
the
they closed it,
name
they closed it.
it couldn't, like, you know, gain steam here, and it was like you said, the most in the middle, tell the truth, not people yelling at
Yes,
each other for an hour and
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that,
yeah,
like people like in America. So it's
yeah,
but
yeah.
it was fun. It was a good time. Unfortunately,
Yeah. But
in
it
the
was
last,
probably, probably like RT, the Russian television, doesn't show in America now, does it? They've stopped it. They've closed it all.
I don't think so. Yeah, but now with the beauty of the internet,
Anyway,
you know, you can watch anything at any time. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure, sure, yeah, sure, sure.
which is great.
Uh,
But yeah,
yeah,
I want to end on a kind of a touchy subject. You talked a little bit about before the genocide. And you made a couple movies,
yeah,
The Promise, which I really loved, and you detailed the
yeah,
genocide there. And you played Oscar Isaac's father, who
yeah,
is a brilliant actor.
yeah.
With subjects like that, and then also the movie The Cut, and with subjects like that, was that something that you felt an obligation to do those movies?
Yeah. Well, in a way, in a way, yes. Um, uh, but also uh, because it is the story of my parents,
Right,
and I was absolutely um, enchanted, delighted that they asked me. Eventually, uh, which is an annoying thing for me as an actor. And I would have thought, if there was anyone as an actor and as the story person eligible to play Oscar Isaac's father amongst the acting fraternity, it was me.
right.
But they never chose me to start with. To start with, that's the way of the film world, isn't it? So I was sent. I was asked to do a tape for some other character. I did the tape and I sent it off. This self-tape nonsense, and then I was asked to do another tape. They liked it, Kevork, but they would like you to tape for this character. I said okay because it's close to my heart, so I did another tape, sent that off. Third request, they'd like you. I said no more. I'm not doing any more tapes. Enough is enough. Obviously, someone is not seeing me, and so I don't know how it happened. I even have suspicions that probably they had some other actor playing Oscar Isaac's father, who probably at the last minute resigned, or they didn't get on with the director, or whatever. I don't know. And they asked me to play his father. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, it's about time that a film was made. You know,
Yeah,
of course it is about time, but unfortunately, there was the 40 Days of Musadar, which is a very famous Franz Werfel novel that stayed on the shelves of MGM for years and years and years. They couldn't make it because of Turkish government pressure.
right.
So how this was permitted, because obviously time goes on, and it was only last year or the year before when Biden accepted that this was a genocide for the first time in 107 years or
Yeah,
106 years or whatever, which is really
I know.
unfathomable for me. These things I don't understand. Yeah. So, but I'm not sure, and I say this with the greatest, yes, it was, and Oscar Isaacs is a lovely actor, of course he is, and Christian Bale, lovely actor. I played Christian Bale's father-in-law in Exodus, Gods and
Right.
Kings.
Yeah.
So I'd met him before, and it was nice to see him again. And he's, again, a lovely gentleman, Oscar as well, and Shore Ardashlu, and the four of us stayed in the same hotels, etc. You know, it was lovely. But if I was really being sincere, and I must be, and I have to be, because this is a story so close to my heart, of my own parents, because of my own parents. My mother was 4 and my father was 7. No, 7, 11, sorry, 11. 4 and 11, when they escaped somehow. Kurdish families saved them. So it is my story, you know. But if you honestly, I can't put my hand on my heart and say that it was what it should have been.
Okay.
And I'll give you the example of, because I can understand, you know, the film had to be sold, the film had to be, you couldn't perhaps, they would not have been allowed to make if they concentrated far too much on the why and wherefores of the genocide, etc., you know. But, and I say this with open sincerity and with full heart, it was not a Schindler's List for me. And that's what we should have had.
Right.
That's exactly what we should have had. That's the type of film that we want. And the cut was exactly the same. I had a wonderful, I don't know if you've seen it, but if you get a chance to have a look at the film, interesting. Fatih Akan is a very wonderful director, Turkish, but German-born Turk. And for him to write and want to make the film, it was wonderful. And I had three weeks playing a wonderful part again of a barber, where Tahar Rahim, a wonderful French actor, comes and stays with me, and I get him to go on his journey to find his daughters. But that again was, in a way, a director's fancy journey through an epic.
Right.
Long shots and long camera lenses and this and that and color and the sunset and people walking in the deserts and all that, you know. It's like for a few dollars more, there, you know, a fistful of dollars. That when the what's his name introduced those wonderful.
Yeah.
So I think there is nothing wrong. I'm sure with Teddy Georges, who directed The Promise, absolutely nothing wrong. And I'm no judge of directors for one moment. I wouldn't know how to judge them, you know. But I do feel it's. I hope to God more opportunities will come, and then we will have. You know, there's a young generation of Armenian actors growing up in Los Angeles now, I see, and there's a young generation of Armenian actors and actresses, you know, growing up, and writers in England. That pleases me so much, because I think, you know, I was like one of a few of Armenian actors of my generation. So I happened too early.
Right.
I need to come again, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned them before, but do you think it would take like the Kardashians just to bring light onto the subject so more people will kind of know about it?
Yes, I think so. No, honestly, I met their father,
Robert, yeah.
at a do in Los Angeles, of this organization. They had invited me, Armenian gentleman who'd given me a grant, and we sat at the same table. A beautiful man. He was the lawyer at
OJ.
OJ. Yeah, he was a lovely man. I mean, little conversation. I didn't even know who the Kardashians didn't exist then. I assumed
Right.
they were little kids, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I say to myself, when he saw what the girls started doing, he probably had a heart attack, the poor man.
Right.
But I sincerely think they've done more to introduce our people, our history, because people have, for a change, they've said, well, where is this bloody place? You know, that you talk the Kardashians come from. And
Right.
for them to visit Armenia and to have her daughter or her children christened in Armenia and Jerusalem, I think it's a great, I think they're a great advert. I don't care what people say.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But Kevork, Thank you so much for doing this today. I know you're a little bit under the weather, and I really appreciate it.
Not
Nothing
at all.
but the best going forward. And thank you for your time again.
My absolute pleasure, my dear friend. I wish you all the very best, and perhaps we can do it again.
And a special thanks to Kevork for joining me today. Wasn't he amazing? If you ever get a suggestion, you can hit me up on Twitter at @thefirsnoel19 or like the page Living My Youth on Facebook. You can go to iTunes and check out all of the 300 episodes we have on there. And while you're there, please rate and review the show. Join up iTunes. Not a problem. Shows on SoundCloud, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music. Basically, wherever you can find a podcast. New episode comes out every week. 301 next week. We'll see you then.